All right, what's up, guys? Happy Tuesday night. I've got a good one for you tonight. This is something that completely changed the game for me, guys. And this concept is just all about how to drop not just one, but two weight classes and increase your strength. So we know that in Strongman, right, it's going to benefit us to be as strong as we can at the lowest, so I shouldn't say lowest, but at the best, most optimal size for us. So a couple days ago, I put a post on my Instagram at Stephen M. Coyne that was 5 tips to become an elite weight class athlete. And one thing that a lot of people messaged me, and I have to agree, is that weight classes are height classes in disguise. So bottom line, if you're 5'8", you're only going to be able to put on so much muscle mass. You're going to have a limit to what you're doing. Now, we want to have the right, kind of composition of muscle mass without being too lean, so we can be athletic, quick, strong, and healthy, most importantly, so that we can set a big standard and just path of success that we can keep building on and on and on and on and on and on from. So a lot of us know the answers to this, right? It's always food, sleep, diet, recovery, but there's more to it than that. We can break this down and get really specific and achieve all of these things at once, okay? So when we're getting into all of this, the first thing you need to really think about is, where are you, right? When we're setting a goal and when we need to get something done, we need to be completely honest about where we are starting from, okay? I know for me, to give you my background and why I did this and why I'm sharing it with you, is I was always pretty strong. I had a very good background in strength training, but I was hovering around 220 and I got up to 232 pounds. I could do legless rope climbs. I could do weighted pull-ups. I could deadlift 600. I could bench around 300 at the time. So I was pretty strong, but, I came to a realization that, wow, the guys that are 230 pounds in strongman, they cut down from 250 and 260 to make their weight class. If I'm walking around at 5'8", at 230 pounds, I'm just not going to be competitive. Okay, so what happened to me is, I've shared this a lot. There was one picture that I saw of myself. I was carrying a sandbag, and I saw my gut. I saw my fat thighs. I saw, I had a big beard that was hiding my double chin and my fat face, and I really was like, holy crap, that's what I look like? And I really desire to be very good at this thing. I desire to be strong and fit. And of course, we all want to look good. So I decided at that moment, enough. Okay. So I went on a long process. It took me really about a year and a half to kind of figure this out. But if we do this right, you can drop a lot of weight quick while gaining strength. So let's just kind of dive in to what we got to do here. All right. And please feel free to drop and ask questions as I'm going through everything. Now, the first thing that we do have to cover is your diet, okay? Again, we all know you got to eat right, okay? But there's more to it than just eating right and being vague, okay? You should be tracking the foods that you're taking in, and at minimum, we want 1 gram per pound of body weight in protein, okay? So when I was 220, I was eating 220 grams of protein, and I still, even as I'm a lighter athlete, in my off season, I'm having about 250 grams of protein, but that's a different story. So one thing that a lot of people do is they just say, I'm going to cut out carbs, okay? Now that can be a successful approach at times, but you have to consider, for the sport and the desires that we have as strength athletes, all of the movements that we are doing, the power, explosive type movements and the medleys that are short and intense, they are all based with carbohydrates as your fuel system. So if you want to improve in strongman, you're going to need to keep those in the mix. All right. Now, this is some general stuff right now, but you cannot just cut out carbs. All right. We need to be making sure that we're fueling our workouts, we're recovering, but also having sufficient fats in this. So just kind of touching on this, because the real fun stuff gets in the training in just a second. So bear with me. Now, What's really important is that you are on top of your micronutrients. So we know we're in a caloric deficit, right? If we're trying to cut weight, right? We're eating less calories than are burning throughout the day. So we need to be pretty selective with our food choices. You can't just have plain ass chicken breast and rice. Even though those are good quality sources, they're pretty devoid of micronutrients. So you really do need to include a lot of vegetables. I eat a ton of fruits personally because the micronutrient and vitamin profile is so high. And we have to do this to make sure that all of our physical body processes are operating at a high level. So think about, right, our body wants to really fight as hard as it can to stay in homeostasis, to keep level, right? So one of the last things it's going to do is burn fat. Now, in order to burn fat more efficiently, we need to make sure that we're giving our body all of those nutrients that are supporting our heart health, our brain health, all of those organs, right? All of the hormonal processes that are going on around the clock 24/7. And we can get that in the most bioavailable forms through food, all right? Now, one thing, it's not for everybody, but I highly recommend getting some organ meats in there. A lot of people like to joke and this and that about like somebody like the Liver King, but his message is pretty spot on. All of those organ meats, my favorites are liver and beef heart, my two favorites, chock full of nutrients. Liver has a lot of vitamin A, which supports your eyes, your heart. Heart has a lot of choline, which is really good for your brain. Egg yolks have a lot of choline that's good for your brains, and vitamin B that supports almost everything that your body does to produce energy. So you have to make sure that you're doing more than just tracking your macronutrients, okay? But if you're somebody that's new to that process, what you need to do first is figure out how to successfully meet those macronutrients and then start refining and making changes to get to a higher profile. Okay, so a lot of my clients use the chronometer app that I put them on, and they are able to see through that. We're able to work together to make sure that their vitamin and mineral and micro profile is up to speed. Now, last thing on diet is just regular checks, right? I do highly, highly, highly recommend doing a daily weigh-in, okay? I used to think that just once a week was good enough, but in reality, our weight is always going up and down, all right? There's always some shifts throughout the day, but even if we're, over time cutting down, it'll look like this and still be trending negative. You just want to think the more data points you can use to your advantage, the better, all right? So my recommendation is we're looking to lose about a pound, maybe a pound and a half every week, because that's our sweet spot where we're still going to be able to build some muscle mass and strength, support all of our recovery processes, and eliminate the fat. So moving on to the fun stuff, the training, okay? So one approach that most people don't do in Strongman that I'm a huge proponent of, and it completely changed the game for me several times. Over the last 10 to 12 to 15 years, I've had long-term periods where I'm training a lot of calisthenics, okay? So this is just body weight movement. If we're going to be dropping a lot of weight, if this is 2 weight classes, this could be 20 to 30 to 40 pounds. We're going to be a completely newly built person, all right? So your leverage has changed. One of my clients that I just recently started working with, she came to me and she had just lost 80 pounds, okay? So she was getting stuck on the same place in her deadlifts over and over and over again, but because her gut was no longer in the way, it changes the way she moved. So we want to use things like calisthenics, and this starts at ground zero from body weight squats, push-ups, even inverted rows, like on a TRX machine if you can't do pull-ups. We do those to intuitively teach you to know how to move your own body through space. So if we do this enough, we don't have to spend a whole lot of time on just refining your deadlift technique, because you're going to naturally and intuitively get into the positions that you need. What's really interesting about when I did my first really big calisthenics block, this was when I was about 25, I did it for a year and a half, and my deadlift stance changed, my bench width changed, and I couldn't really explain it to you at the time, but I just knew that they were better, right? I used to have a really wide bench and a a wide stance with my deadlift. But again, I had more body mass here. I had a lot more limitations and restrictions in my upper back and upper body. But when I just went in, like I just started feeling like, oh, you know what? If I just come in a little bit, I'm able to more sharply engage my shoulders and my upper back, and I can really tighten and kick out with my triceps harder than I was when I had this wide bench. So these things just start to develop so you know how to move not just your body, but weights through space. Now, there's a lot more benefits to it than that. Calisthenics, just the way that they work, these body weight exercises, they actually strengthen your connective tissues a lot faster than any other modality of exercise than lifting weights, okay? It's just part of it. It's part of how the fluid that you're throwing into the muscles, because you have to increase repetitions and complexity to make them harder, you're just getting a better reaction and recovery response from your body. So I'm going to skip ahead here a little bit because this will all kind of piece together. But when we're doing any sort of training, calisthenics and conditioning are kind of our focus, right? Because conditioning is not only going to improve our recovery, it's going to burn fat and just further get us to our goal a lot faster. My favorite way to do this is a method called density training, okay? So this is a method where you set a time parameter and you try to just increase your reps in that time over weeks or even months or even multiple blocks. So you can start very simple on this. This could be something like push-ups, all right? Push-ups, we start with, okay, do as many as you can in 10 minutes, clean, legitimate, chest to the floor. And the thing is it doesn't really matter where you start. What matters is that you track and measure what you did and have a repeatable pattern that you can improve on week after week after week. So we can do that with push-ups. After a little bit amount of time, then we would want to progress them. So let's say, you were doing 150 push-ups in 10 minutes. Then it is time to level up. We're going to go to decline push-ups where we're elevating our feet. So this is already, you can start seeing how, we're getting a lot of volume in, so we're building muscle. And then at a certain point, once we progress, we change the lever, we elevate your feet so that you're now pressing more of your body weight. We're building strength because we have to push more weight up now, okay? But what's awesome, and one thing I love to do, is do big circuits with this density style. So this works super well if you are somebody that's limited on time, or it's kind of fun to gamify this if you really hate your conditioning. I would take like some full body movements. My favorite way to do this is to kind of alternate upper front, lower, upper back, upper front, lower, upper back. So it's called blood shunting. So what's happening here is we get activation through our upper body, a lot of blood flow here, and then we take it immediately into our legs, then we take it immediately into our upper back. So we're keeping our heart rate up and elevated, but giving our body parts like a little bit of a rest so that we can stay moving over long periods of time. A very basic example of this in a like body weight only form would be, we're going to do push-ups and then squats and then a pull-up variation and then lunges and then a tricep dip and then an inverted row. So if we're following that pattern, again, it's upper, lower, upper, lower, upper, repeat. So what really works well with Strongman then is to do this, but with Strongman movements. So we can do farmer's carry into maybe a tricep dip for some upper body pressing power, into a sled push, into an arm over arm rope pull. So think about how you can build out these big circuits so you're training all of these Strongman elements in a conditioning format. Now I want you to think, when we're doing this, we're really trying to build it up over, maybe 8 weeks, 12 weeks, or if you're already somebody that's pretty fit, you could do it in like a 4-week period. But if we start, let's say, example circuit, I'll give you one off the top of my head. It would be tricep dips, sled push, pull-ups, let's say a dumbbell shoulder press, then a sled drag backwards, and then maybe a core exercise. Let's say we have a 30-minute time cap. In the first round, we're only able to get 3 done. No problem. Our goal over 2 to 3 weeks is to get 5 done in that time frame. And then after that, we're going to bump up to 40 minutes. And then once we can get like 8 sets done, then we start adding weight to everything. Okay? So I hope you guys are following me here, but this is just all about slow, steady progressions. Now, the one way to really jack up your strength with this as well is to start doing some unilateral work, okay? You got to consider that when we are trying to drop these weight classes and increase our strength, we have to just become a whole new person, right? What we're doing now is like not serving us to our highest potential, so we have to come up with some different ways to strengthen ourselves in a whole new way. All right, my favorite way that I did this, unilateral just means like a one-sided exercise. And when we do these right, like the calisthenics, we're going to be working through really big ranges of motion. So take a split squat, for example, right? That's a single leg strength exercise. But in order to do it correctly and sufficiently, we have to work through that full range of motion where we're getting this back knee all the way down to the ground, and then we can raise it up, raise it up, raise it up. Same thing can happen with a single arm push-up off a rack or an incline bench, right? We just get lower and lower and lower. So that's really a lot what's going on here. So I kind of went all over the place here, but let me succinctly like wrap this all up into a nice like little package. The way that I would do this is pick, one movement where you can really push your strength. So for me on legs, that would be like a single leg split squat, eventually take it to Bulgarian split squats, where we can load the weight in a way that's going to force us to get a big stretch, which is going to work our mobility and increase our joints. And then we support it with a full body complex, which we're adding weight and volume over time to develop our conditioning. So this is all about increasing your mobility, conditioning, and strength in one big workout. Always set up this long-term plan of progression, okay? Doesn't matter where you start. It's all about where you're headed. Now, with all of that, the next thing we have to really think about is our recovery. We all know this stuff, but this is like really one of the easiest things that you can do to just continue losing the fat, right? NEAT, non-exercise active thermogenesis. So this is all the activity that you are doing outside of your workouts. Everybody's heard we need to get 10,000 steps a day. It's a great target. If you're somebody that only gets like 3,000 or 4,000 steps a day, you need to just start getting more, okay? You need to increase that daily activity level to where you are just burning more calories around the clock. Very simple, all right? Then on top of that, of course, we have to sleep. One of the biggest things that's impacting your sleep, I don't know if you've ever heard the term of light diet, but we need to make sure that we're setting our body up with the circadian rhythm as well as possible. Our body wants as badly as possible to be in rhythms all the time. So getting sunlight during the day, especially if you can first thing in the morning, getting that sunlight right into your eyes, it sets off a trigger reaction of different hormones in your body that's going to put stress and cortisol production in an optimal place for your body. It's going to trigger melatonin release at night so that you get into deeper, restful sleep, right? Plus, if you're to do things like stacking the sun and the earth is a really good term. If you're able to get some sun first thing in the morning and get your bare feet in the grass, this grounding concept is really real, where your body is absorbing the negative ions from the earth, which counteracts all of the EMF and electronic and Bluetooth signals and impulses that are coming through your body all day long. So you really do want to prioritize getting outside, getting sleep, and getting your activity. Now, here's a way we can stack all of this is just do something that's fun cardio, okay? Like, do you like riding bikes? Do you like going for walks in nature? Like, this is a way that you can really like 10x a lot of this activity here, okay? You're getting better sleep because you're getting sun on your skin and in your eyes. You're getting all those positive benefits from being in nature. You're getting more calories burned because you are moving and active. And you're just going to be happier because you're not going to be sitting inside spending time like sucking down your screen and doom scrolling, right? Now, what's important with all of this, again, there's kind of like a couple different ways to skin the cat here, but you do need to be measuring your progress, okay? Now, we are not somebody who's like getting ready for a bodybuilding show. So some of these things, like if we have to get down to really super specific things, it's not as important as making sure that we are always progressing. There are some smart scales that are available on like Amazon, which will give you a body fat reading. And I don't really think they're the most accurate, but they're going to be consistent, okay? So if you're somebody that's weighing in every day, like I told you earlier that you should, using that body fat scale, even if it's not accurate, it's going to give you a consistent readout to ensure that you are going in the right direction. I really am a big fan of like recovery watches and metrics. So if you have a Fitbit or a Garmin or a Whoop, these are things that can give you feedback to let you know if your sleep is improving, if your recovery is improving. And now don't get super tied up to like the scores and like having to be perfect or anything, but it's all about consistency over the long term, all right? You have to be consistent to make the game. You cannot just do something for 2 weeks and then fall off the wagon and expect to, show up at the destination that you want. Just not the way that any of this works. So I'm going to keep flying through, but I got a whole thing, going to tie it all together at the end, I promise. Now, the last thing that is important is we're always mind, body, and soul. We're always working on all those aspects all together. So you have to make sure that your mental and spiritual health are in order. I like to call this term, strong manifestation. We are manifesting the inner strong man in us, okay? So what does that mean? How are we going to do that, and why is it important? If you are somebody who's always super stressed, right? Like we talked about hormones and how important that is. High stress is literally blocking your body's ability to burn fat, get into deeper sleep, and focus on the things that you want, right? What we want to do to overcome that is embody that person that's at that finish line right now. So you need to stay tied in to the emotions and the feelings of I feel amazing now that I have lost 20 pounds. I feel amazing now that I look in the mirror and I see these big pythons or whatever you want to say. It's very easy to get sidetracked and upset, and a lot of people have this problem where one thing will go wrong and then they derail their whole diet because they're upset and they want to binge on something or have a couple drinks or eat some sugary foods. But you need to think about who is this person that I am becoming, and you need to start embodying that right now. And if you're having trouble figuring out who that person is, well, you have to take another big step back and think, why do I want to be this person? Right? We all have different levels of motivation and reasons for wanting to do this, but a lot of people, that I talk to that are parents, they want to be the example for their children, or for some other people, they had, a whole family history before them of people that were overweight, died young, had a ton of medical problems, and they never want to be that person. They want to live well and healthy into their old age. So you have to really connect to all of these things. I've got a lot of my own personal reasons why I do what I do. And when I stay connected to those, it helps me just do the things that I have to do. There's no emotion tied to it. It just is part of the process of who I am. Now, there's different ways that we can refine and stay grounded to that. One of them is getting all of this outdoor time. It's just being connected to nature. Some other things that we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on, but meditation, a prayer practice, okay? Quiet time. So in my studies, going through this course by this guy named Paul Chek, and he says that there are 4 doctors. They're the last 4 doctors that you'll ever need. So it's Dr. Diet, Dr. Quiet, Dr. Movement, and Dr. Happiness. Okay, so quiet, diet, movement, happiness. It's all about finding the balance of those things for you. And if you are doing all of those elements, if you have the element of diet, that's working for you of quiet, that's solitude time and prayer practice and meditation, or maybe it's time in nature, going to the beach, getting out for a hike, whatever. Movement, right? So this is important because movement is not just, doing our training program. We have to have movement that supports our goals and doesn't totally freaking fry us, right? That's why we keep talking about long-term progression plan, because we want something we can stick to and not get burned out of it. And then last is happiness. So happiness comes from, our soul and what we want from our lives, but it also is the things that we do in our daily life to make us feel good, to give us that natural dopamine release. So that could be your relationships. That could be, maybe you are somebody right now who's competing in strongman. Like when I have a competition coming up that really excites me and I'm like super stoked to like get there and be a part of it, or like when I'm setting PRs, or, when we're dropping weight, like this could be like, wow, the scale is going down. Hell yeah, I'm doing it, right? So that's the level of, happiness that you need to find. So find that balance where, you have, again, diet, quiet, happiness, and movement in a way that works for you, okay? So really to kind of tie this all together here in a nice way, we need to really be prioritizing a high protein, high micronutrient diet, okay? The more natural and more whole food sources that we can get while we are trying to cut weight, the better. And now here's the best part of this, is that when we get in these habits of having a high protein diet, we're having high micronutrient foods, when we exit this stage, when we become this new lower weight class person, and we are increasing our strength all the time, when it's time to go into performance mode for a competition or whatever, right? Like your food choices and the things that that you've been eating that are helping you succeed, you're going to be able to use the same things just in different amounts and like different times here and there to help you perform at an even higher level. This is the fuel that's going into your body to perform one way or another. So if you've got a Ferrari, are you going to put crap gas into it? No, you need the high octane premium fuel. It's the same concept. It's what's going to help us burn fat more efficiently, but it's also what's going to help us build muscle, perform, have more endurance, not just in our training sessions, but in our competitions when it really counts. So high protein, high micronutrient diet. And then I went all over the place on this training, but I want to give you kind of two things to think about with this. Calisthenics really got to play a part in this. Because again, if you desire to change your body composition, you're becoming somebody that's totally new. So you need to teach your body how to move in space as the new person, not the old person. Just think about, as an extreme example, think about anybody that's 400 pounds, or just think of somebody that's 400 pounds. Picture how they walk. We're all going to be thinking the same thing here, guys. They're going to be, waddling around a little bit, they like can barely pick their feet up off the ground. That's just how it is. Okay, but I want you to think about now somebody in your life, or just picture somebody who's in crazy good shape. They're lean, they're strong, they're athletic. What do they walk like? What do they walk like? They walk tall with their chest up, shoulders back, with a natural smooth cadence, right? But that's a body that has been refined through proper movement. Okay, so when we are becoming this new person, you might not be going from 400 pounds to 200. Maybe you are. I don't know who's watching, but you're going to just be moving different as a whole new person. If you've ever lost any amount of weight in your life, think about how it feels. Like your joints feel better, you breathe better, like you can do things for longer. So really embrace, the challenge to learn how to move your body through space. Super fun. Now, in that, I will take a side note, self-plug. On that note, we just put up a handstands for strongman course in the Strongman Club, clubstrongman.com, which is kind of teaching this exact philosophy and this method. So if you're somebody who is nowhere close to being able to do that, we start you at ground zero. This literally starts from push-ups on a wall or a plank on a wall. And then you can go down, down, down. You can get to knee push-ups, toe push-ups, and then work your feet up to doing wall walks handstand holds, and eventually over time, you'll be able to do handstand walks. It's crazy, but you can really get there. If I can do it, so can you. You know, I would have never in a million years thought that 3 years ago I could get some steps on my hands. Like, I'm not the best at it, but I can do it, you know? And that's helped me strengthen my shoulders, improve my posture, increase my mobility, and make these huge gains on my overhead presses, okay? 2 years ago at OSG, I got 31st in the overhead event, and last year I got 17th, and this year I'm going to do even better. So that's just what happens when we set that base through calisthenics. But if we're doing a lot of like body weight squats, for example, you know, we're getting ourselves comfortable and strong in a deep position then when we need to get low to pick up an atlas stone or sit low in a lat position for a stone or a log or anything like that. So that's how these do eventually tie back in. So when we combine that with unilateral strength movements, again, I kept giving you the example of a split squat or a Bulgarian split squat, we're kind of enhancing that with strength. So if we were going to do Bulgarian split squats, that's a loaded exercise on our legs that's forcing us to go through a really big, deep range of motion, which over time, you know, when I did this block a couple years ago, I kid you not, I got up to, I think maybe 365 pounds with a safety bar on my back doing Bulgarian split squats. So think about the amount of power that you're going to have in all sorts of positions if you can do a 300-pound Bulgarian split squat on each leg all the way down to the ground. You know, that's on one leg. So if you got to pick up a 300-pound sandbag using both of your legs, no problem, right? Not only are you going to be able to do it, but your joints and your body is going to be strong to support you in what most people think is a compromised position. So use these concepts and then use density style training, because using a time cap is going to prevent you from overtraining, which will allow you to recover better, okay? Now, of course, get your active recovery, your active steps, track and measure everything you're doing, and then you have to stay connected to your purpose, take care of your mental health and your spiritual goals and wellness in order to like tie all of this together. So that is how you drop 2 weight classes and gain strength. This is exactly all the philosophies and systems that I use. When I went from 230 pounds down to 232 at my highest, my lowest I stepped on the scale was 178. Now I've worked my way back up slowly to about 190 pounds, which is what I am right now. I usually do a water cut down to my 80 kilo class, but I did it. I cut 54 pounds technically doing all of these methods. So that's that, guys. Happy to field any questions if you have any. If you want me to dig a little deeper into anything here, more than happy to get into it, man. But it's just got to be done. It's got to be done. You know the work that you got to do, but do it because you want to do it, and do it because you have a deep, invested spiritual reason, like why you want to. From Elliot Hulse, my guy, that guy. He's talked about, are you following a soul goal or a troll goal? It's just a goal that you think you need to do because it's like what you think is important or what you think you got to do, or are you doing it because your soul's saying, I want to do this? When you have that soul goal, you're going to have a better time staying connected and staying grounded to exactly it is what you're getting after. So with that, I would say always believe in yourself. You can do it. I did it. You can do it too. I've seen so many other people achieve this as well. So there's no way that you can't get it done. I am not going to hear any excuse or any bullcrap, because I know people personally. I've coached people that have gone through much, much, much more. Not to make light of anything you're going through in your life, but I'm telling you, you can overcome any circumstance that is in your way. Plain and simple. So, sweet, guys. I'm going to just sit tight for like another minute or two. If anybody's got a question, they want to pop in the chat or anything like that, go ahead. I'll kind of keep spinning a few things here. I just cannot stress how important it is to have an accurate, honest assessment of where you are starting your journey from. Some people may be pretty upset to come face to face with the terms that they are way more overweight than they think that they are. it sucks, okay? So let's face it, let's accept it, and then let's do something about it. You know, however you want to frame it is kind of up to you, right? Facts are just facts. It's the way they are. You know, how you feel about them is really up to you. You can apply it as like, wow, this is going to make for an even better come up story when I'm done. You know, when I'm finished with this, I'm going to be able to look back and say, hey, man, I lost all this weight. Whoa. Skinny Sean's back. Skinny Sean Fennelly is back, man. Yeah, I've seen Sean Fennelly at all weights across the board, man. So he can do it. You can do it too. Sean just made it as a 105 athlete down to 230 for OSG regionals last week. Trapper King in the building. So yeah, and then, you know, too, it's important to know where you're starting from, have an honest, accurate, real grounded assessment of where you are right now, and then a clear-cut picture of where you want to go. You know, so this is what's nice about Strongman is we have weight classes, so we know with hard terms like where we want to end up. So this is why when somebody wants to lose weight, you can't just say I want to lose weight. You need to be definitive and specific about I want to lose 20 pounds. So if you're this person here that wants to drop 2 weight classes, 105 kilos to 80 kilos is 50 pounds. But think of it in a different way. Like I said earlier, I'm walking around about 190. I needed to lose about 40 pounds in that process. I'm doing that every, let's say, 2 pounds a week. I get there in 20 weeks. If I'm doing it 1.5 pounds every week, I need about 30 weeks to get there. You know, so it can feel overwhelming and daunting sometimes to like think about such a long-term process, but you can do it. You're going to get there. You know, when you have this measurable track and you're analyzing with regular check-ins all the time, you're going to know whether or not you are on path or not. You know, if you really care enough about it, you'll get there. So that's why I exist. That's why I do what I do. Here to coach people to help you get there. So if this is something that sounds really cool to you, come join clubstrongman.com because I'm going to be talking way more about this stuff all the time. You know, to get into some more personal stuff. I can't stand a lot of the things in Strongman where it's just like a lot of like fat people and mass moving mass and this and that. I think there's a better way to do this. I think it's better to be, you know, lean, athletic, capable, not just for our sport, but like for ourselves as individuals, right? So if you're interested in kind of being a part of this, I'm going to end it right here, but come join me, clubstrongman.com. We have some group calls every week. Tomorrow, only inside the Strongman Club, is our call on Strongman strategies. So tomorrow's going to be specifically about cutting weight and nutrition for competitions and the lead up and game day of competitions. And then Thursday night is going to be a deeper dive into mental strategies. It's going to be a lot this week about visualization and how to create a winning outcome just with your mental training. So you can only get those on clubstrongman.com. Come join us on the inside. It is free. We'd love to see you there. I'm going to call it there for tonight. Thanks for watching. Have a championship night and stay strong.